rolling
But a
in
few
Duggan
minutes
money.
later, after
Still
looking
doesn't
at the
stop him
total
committing
on the
insurance
screen,
fraud.
he has to take a
Burned down an
second look.
apartment he was renting
It's a
out.
moment.
Burned the tenant's dog with it. Typical Duggan, if you ask me.
It is Thursday, June 11th. Welcome to the show. President Trump.
You know, Malcolm X once said, we're not outnumbered, we're out-strategized. And Congressional District 20 is a prime example. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, a career politician, is running against 4 black candidates for District 20, which is a historically black district.
All right, there's a bar in town with fraudster Bill Duggan's name on the deed. Used to run a business out back. Was shut down years ago, but word is there's still plenty of football around there, so color me curious.
Who is the best person to win? Currently, Luther Campbell is polling the highest. The other candidates, Dale Holness, Sheila McCormick, and Elijah Manley, are still in the race. There's, I believe, 2 weeks to qualify. Sheila McCormick, as you may know, has resigned from Congress because of some improprieties and is likewise facing an indictment. Many believe that she very well may be staying in the race in order to leverage her criminal situation. That is certainly contrary to the black community. I would urge you to speak to all of those candidates, and let's decide on one before Debbie Wasserman Schultz can pull her trick and steal that seat.
Wait. So, we gotta talk about more infighting that is happening within the Democrat Party as the cultural Marxists are upset with the establishment Democrats not forcing out Debbie Wasserman Schultz from running in a so-called black district in Florida. Everybody should be familiar with the Republicans redistricting that state, and as a result of redistricting, you now have Democrats having to run in districts that they don't represent, right? They haven't represented, that they're unfamiliar with, either that or lose their seat, okay? And Democrats have to make tough decisions about who's going to run where. And Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who has been a leader within the Democrat Party, is facing a whole lot of backlash from the pro-blacks, aka the cultural Marxists of the Democrat Party, who do not believe that a white woman should be representing a so-called black district. These people believe that black people are entitled to a district, they're entitled to seats, and they're never going after her because of the fact that she refuses to drop out. Now, I just want to say this. I personally have no dog in this fight. I'm not a fan of Debbie Wasserman Schultz. If she loses, that's great, right? That means that eliminated from Congress, right? So that's a great thing. The Republican redistricting, getting rid of the top talent in the Democrat Party because the cultural Marxists don't like the fact that she's white. I think you can't write a better story. So that is wild coverage. This is one of these stories that we have to talk about. And the writings on the wall for Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who is running in the district as Hakeem Jeffries has refused to endorse her outright. And also on top of that, you have ghetto Democrats like Jasmine Crockett, who lost her race. She's on the way out of Congress. She's now going off publicly against Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Again, presumably because the Black Caucus in Congress is telling her that she has to drop out.
I asked you the other week about Debbie Wasserman Schultz and whether you're going to back the re-election. You said you didn't have an update. I'm curious, as we approach the primary day in Florida, whether you have an update on that race.
We're working on the primary date that is now inside of 2.5 weeks in New York. And obviously there's some very competitive primaries, some of which I've gotten involved in. And so our focus right now is on those primaries. And then of course, there are a handful of primaries in July, and then we'll get to the Florida primaries. But Debbie Wasserman Schultz has been a highly productive, hard-working, conscientious member of the House Democratic Caucus for more than 20 years, and is now a very important member of the leadership team.
We know that there are currently debates taking place because Debbie Wasserman Schultz is now wanting to run in one of the few VRA districts for decades to come. Because that's exactly who this court is. This court is racist, this court is immoral, and this court lacks any semblance of ethics. The fact that this court just on last night decided that they want to go after yet another Alabama seat, and then they decided to throw out the votes of the voters in Louisiana because they decided that they wanted to go after yet another black seat in Louisiana. The fact that Virginia decided to stand up and fight back, and it was this same Supreme Court that decided forget the will of the people and the fact that they voted, we're going to throw that out.
With the CBC about that decision to run, here's what you said.
I need out of here right now.
None of them asked me not to run. What the leadership, what Hakeem Jeffries and my CBC colleagues told me is that, they know I know our community, and Leader Jeffries trusts Democrats to be able to know our communities well enough to have reached out, done the important outreach necessary to be able to make the decisions that we need to be able to make on how we can most effectively represent our community.
Did you personally encourage Congresswoman Wasserman Schultz to run in the 20th?
Well, let me say this. We had a conversation. Encouragement was not part of that conversation.
Yeah. So again, this is a full-blown civil war against Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Okay, Hakeem Jeffries has been a coward in this situation, like always. In a tough position where he's asked tough questions. It's I'm not really focused on that. I don't know nothing about that, right? He knows everything about Trump, what's Nick's games, right? He knows everything about what Trump is doing. But apparently, when it comes to his own party, right, he don't know anything. He don't know anything about Graham Plattner, right? A communist, right? Somebody that they have deemed to be a predator. Okay, somebody that's not great with women. Okay, Hakeem Jeffries, I don't know nothing about
Tommy
that,
Lim
right?
is a known campaign member with burglary and paid murder charges. Recent addition, but quickly rising up the ranks. Word is he's got a background of bank robbery when he's not a hitman. And just so happens I heard the Korean mob are on their way to rob a bank. Go figure.
Your colleagues, your black colleagues are telling this white woman trying to bully her out of this district, out of this race, simply because she's white, right? You don't have anything to say about that, right? Again, I just find it fascinating. When it comes to the issues of the Democrat Party, the leader of Democrats don't know anything about it, right? So without further ado, let's continue our coverage of the Democrats lashing out against this white woman for running in a black district.
Well, now you've heard from the chair of the party there in Florida. What's your reaction to what she said, and are you satisfied with what she is doing in this race?
I've spoken to Leader Freed, and I want to thank her for speaking up on behalf of Black Floridians. What we're seeing all across Florida right now is a reaction from the Black community to Congresswoman Wasserman Schultz's decision to carpet back into Florida 20. This is a seat that was created forcibly in 1992 to protect Black representation. It had to be forcibly created because we've seen 116 years without a Black representative from Florida. And Alcee Hastings did that in 1993. And now we see someone from Weston who doesn't live in the district carpetbagging into our district. We need somebody with our lived experiences, our shared lived experiences to represent this district.
Now here's the thing about these individuals, okay? If they would just make the argument and say, hey, look, right? And I think most people would say, okay, like, that makes sense. She doesn't live in the district, so therefore, you don't feel like she is somebody that should represent people who have lived in that district for a long time. She doesn't understand our needs. I get that. I think ideally, in an ideal world, representatives should live in the districts that they represent. However, it doesn't quite work like that because you do have these districts that get redrawn every few years. And what happens is that you do have individuals who get drawn out of the district, right? So I think that's why it's not really required that you live in a district in order to represent it, because ultimately it comes down to what the people in that district want, right? They say, hey, you might not live in this district, but we want you to represent us or our needs. Then they have the right to vote for that, right? But I think, again, ideally, the representatives live in the district. So I think that's their strongest argument. And if they would have just stuck with that argument, I don't think this story would be as ridiculous as it is. But I think when you try to throw in race, when it's completely unnecessary to make your argument, right? You already have a strong argument based off the fact she doesn't live there, and she doesn't understand the need. Just keep it at that. But again, they throw in race. And when they throw in race, what they're doing is that they're basically telling people that, hey, we want special rights and privileges. We want black districts. Can white people demand a white district? No, they can't demand white districts. Once you start talking about demanding white districts, then you start talking about white supremacy, right? It's a problem. It's racism. It's hatred, bigotry. But apparently black people are supposed to be entitled to their own districts? It's nonsense. The people in that district have the right to decide who they want to represent them. If they can't all come together and say, hey, we want to vote for this person, and that person happens to be black, then it is what it is. So I don't think that white people should be barred from being able to represent black people at all if black people come together and say, hey, we want this individual to represent us. But again, the reality is that black folks, and again, this is part of the reason why I'm so against the Marxism, right? The cultural Marxism that has been at the root of so-called black liberation for a long time. Okay, for a long time, a lot of this stuff has been driven by Marxism.
You gone too
Right?
far.
You get this type of tribalism that is not beneficial for black folks. It's not. And I know it sounds counterintuitive, but ultimately, a lot of this, again, is rooted in socialism and collectivism, which is not benefiting the black community. It's actually made the black community shift, right? We tend to elect the worst leadership possible. Like, for example, out in this district, who's leading this race outside of Debbie Wasserman Schultz? Luther Campbell, a rapper, right? These are the same people that voted into office Shayla Shapilis McCormick, okay, who stole millions of dollars, millions of taxpayer dollars, likely gonna get convicted, right? She was forced to drop out of Congress because it was so damning, so obvious that she's guilty, and she's running again. And you're gonna have Negroes, they're gonna line up, they're gonna vote for her. And if you wonder why the black community is so behind, because when we move like this, right, the way that we move, we don't tend to make great decisions, right? You have these people saying, hey, this woman who's been a leader within the Democrat Party, she gotta go. She gotta go, and we have to put somebody in that seat that's black, right? Because that seat belongs to a black person, regardless of qualification, regardless of experience, regardless of if they're criminal or not. Doesn't matter. They have to be black. They have to be black. And then you end up getting
This is a
people
big
who are
mistake.
right, in positions of power. And then you get these terrible results because you're not putting qualified people in positions of power, right? You're electing people based on race. And again, this type of tribalism is low IQ behavior. It is, because your skin color should not dictate your politics, right? Your skin color should not dictate your politics. And honestly, your politics should dictate your skin color, right? But I mean, that's kind of how the Democrats got it set up. If you're not a Democrat, if you're not liberal, then you ain't black. Ain't that right, Joe Biden? Right? If you don't vote for me, then you ain't black. So we understand how Democrats think, right? It's just, it's wild to me that these people don't just allow the voters to pick who they want, right? If they don't want a white woman, just let them do what they gotta do. If these black candidates got the juice like that, if they're qualified and, you know, they're in the district and they know the people, then they should be able to win. That's my thing. My thing is, hey, just let it play out. Let the black people who are running, let them earn it, right?
Her business rival's window
Don't
and
just
taking
hand
a
it to them.
dump on their desk.
And again, I'm not a
She
fan
left
of
out the
Debbie
part
Wasserman
she had a
Schultz. Hey, I would love her to
receptionist.
lose her
Nice
job
PR
and to have some unqualified black person in that seat that's